Earlier, I spoke with former UN Ambassador John Bolton about the implications of the most recent WikiLeaks expose. I asked him about its effect on diplomacy, national security, and if diplomats simply and regularly tell lies.
Never forget what the great French diplomat Talleyrand once said, foreign minister of France in the Napoleonic era. He said, a diplomat is a statesman sent out to lie for his country.
Ooh.
There are convenient misstatements that people can make. And it may not be the most appealing thing to say, but honestly, in that case, that's a good example of something that benefited the United States.
Did you ever lie for your country?
I don't think so knowingly, but I certainly am able to spin things, and a good diplomat is able to spin things, just like American politicians.
Is Hillary Clinton's anger based upon her own State Department's inability to control these documents, her own potential embarrassment, her own inability to say to foreign diplomats, speak to us candidly, no one will hear?
Yeah, no, I think it's a terrible wound to the United States. But let's be clear. I think Secretary Clinton also got it wrong when she said this was an attack on the international community, releasing these documents. It absolutely was not an attack on the international community. It was an attack on the United States.
Okay, so it was an attack on the United States? Is it an attack on the United States for us to know that our ally, Saudi Arabia, is actually financing al-Qaeda? Isn't that something we would want to know?
I think we know that already. It's not the government of Saudi Arabia. It's rich people in Saudi Arabia. Do I find it attractive? Absolutely not. Am I surprised it's going on? No, it's been known for years.
But isn't it, we've learned things that the public should know, haven't we? That the Saudis are just as fearful of Iran as the Israelis. And at the same time, the Saudis, maybe not the king, but his buddies, are financing al-Qaeda. That we are, in fact, killing people who we believe are bad in Yemen, but we're denying it, lying about it, and the president of Yemen is claiming he's killing his own people. Question: don't the American people have the right to know that? And if so, didn't a good service come about as a result of these documents being revealed?
Now, I want to make the case for secrecy in government when it comes to the conduct of national security affairs, and possibly for deception where that's appropriate. You know, Winston Churchill said during World War II that in wartime, truth is so important it should be surrounded by a bodyguard of lies.
Do you really believe that?
Absolutely.
You would lie in order to preserve the truth?
If I had to say something I knew was false to protect American national security, I would do it. I don't think we're often faced with that difficulty. But would I lie about where the D-Day invasion was going to take place to deceive the Germans? You better believe it.
Why do people in the government think that the rules of society or the laws don't apply to them?
Because they are not dealing in the civil society we live in under the Constitution. They are dealing in an anarchic environment internationally where different rules apply.
But you took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and the Constitution mandates certain openness and certain fairness. You're willing to do away with that in order to achieve a temporary military goal?
And I think, as Justice Jackson said in a famous decision, the Constitution's not a suicide pact.
But you took an oath to it.
That's exactly right. And I think defending the United States from foreign threats does require actions that in a normal business environment in the United States we would find unprofessional. You know, I don't make any apology for it.
I prefer a more benign statement from Winston Churchill, and you know this, when he once said diplomacy is not the fine art of saying yes or no, it's the fine art of saying yes and no.
Well, but that's
really
exactly
what the diplomats do?
That's
confuse each other?
That's what they do all the time. That's one reason why I was a different kind of diplomat. But I want to stress, I think there are times when you need to be express and candid. There are times when you need to obfuscate publicly and privately.
Can you break the law? As a diplomat, as a government leader, if you think there's a greater good?
No, you cannot break American law without suffering the consequences, period, close quote.
All right. Do you accept the doctrine of the Supreme Court and the Pentagon Papers that the thief, whether it's this buck private they're accusing or whoever, who took the documents, committed the crime, but the publisher didn't, because whatever is in the public interest can be published?
Well, that's not the holding of the Pentagon Papers.
Yes, it is.
No. They said that it was an effort at a prior restraint was not permissible under the First Amendment, but they said nonetheless that the criminal laws against the publication of secrets or related information
Since the
still
Pentagon
applied.
Papers, the Supreme Court has ruled uniformly that if the document itself is of public interest, the public can get it. There's no crime and there's no action on the part of the publisher. That doesn't protect the thief, but it protects the publisher. Stated differently, are these WikiLeaks people, in your opinion, terrorists.
Well, I would distinguish between the newspapers publishing the documents, who may well be immune from criminal prosecution, and an organization like WikiLeaks. I don't know if technically you can call WikiLeaks a terrorist organization, but I do think they've attacked the United States. I don't think they're protected by the First Amendment, and I think if our cyber warriors want some target practice, they should use WikiLeaks.
But the government does not have the liberty of deciding who is protected by the First Amendment and who isn't, because the answer is everyone is.
Adolf Hitler was not protected by the First Amendment. The government
Well, he's dead. I'm talking about contemporary.
When he was alive. I don't think Julian Assange can call himself a think tank, a news organization, any more than he can call himself a church.
Suppose he published what you liked. Would you defend him then?
No.
All right. John Bolton, former ambassador to the United Nations, a spirited debate, one always welcome here. Thanks for joining us on Freedom Watch.
Glad to be here.